Hey there, guys. You're listening to Yakkin with Nick. I am your host, Nick Hazelton. Oh, you guys hear the doggy? It's a little bit stormy outside. I don't think it's going to pick up. I think the storm's over. But I wanted to talk to you guys about my relationship with animals, particularly because I'm a meat farmer. I raise yaks and hogs, and I sell them. And then I kill them and I sell the meat, or I sell them and the person kills them and eats the meat, right? But either way, I'm raising animals for slaughter, and I think that it's an interesting thing to talk about because as we industrialize and life becomes more comfortable, we see a lot of new ideas come up, a lot more progressive ideas of how do we improve our world. And just because of this is my industry, right? Meat farming. One of these progressive ideas is this animal rights act, like animal rights. I don't know, what do you call it? Veganism. I don't know. And it's something that, I shit on vegans all the time. I like to make fun of them. I really do. It doesn't make sense to me. And I've studied this a lot. And this is I guess my point is I really do try to take it seriously. And I really value, I guess, the challenge of thinking of, is what I am doing right? Am I doing the right thing with my life? Is raising animals the good ethical thing to do? And this idea it's really introduced to me to this girl I used to date back when I was in high school, who was a pescatarian, and she introduced to me most, I guess, these ideas. I would say that she did it. Through documentaries like Earthlings, and can't remember what else we watched. Only listened to her because she was pretty. Nah, just kidding. she was a smart woman, and I really respected that she was able to challenge me in that way. And our relationship did not last, but I try to take that seriously, and as I've kept raising animals and I've developed my philosophy, and as I've kept thinking about life, I try to keep this one pretty close to my mind. My relationship with the animals that I have, because obviously I'm not a vegan. I wouldn't be doing this, but I do believe that animals, as sentient life creatures, deserve respect in a certain way, and then we'll get into it today. So I guess particularly why I want to do this episode is I think that there's a disconnection that most people have from their food. As we've developed, as industrialized, and as these progressive ideas have come about, people have moved into cities, and there's no room to raise animals in the city. There's so many people and buildings there. You don't really get to have that relationship with livestock, and typically not even in a garden, right? So over the last 200 years or something, the majority of people in the United States have lost that connection with their diet, where they would have hunted and gathered and farmed their food. Some of it they would get, from the store back in the day, but man, before refrigeration, it's pretty hard to do that. Supermarkets really couldn't exist, right? So that's the thing. I think that you are probably one of these people, right, that has this disconnection from raising animals or even vegetables, fruit, whatever you're eating. You probably do not get to see it growing. Whatever you get from the grocery store, you're not seeing that thing be alive. And I think that that's an important part of your relationship with your food, is seeing it alive. And that's kind of the particular thought that got me going today, is most people have this disconnection. And I think that this is where a lot of these differences in thought come from, is the experiences that we've had. I think that the typical vegan's experience with raising animals is very limited, and they probably don't understand it. It's my experience that I know animals a lot more than animal rights activists, because I've studied them. And these people typically don't study animals. They don't typically study nutrition either. They watch a couple I don't need to get into this, right? I'm trying to. There are plenty of smart vegans, and I don't want to discredit them all by saying, these are the people that I typically hear from, and I don't agree with them. But I do think that it's not too outrageous to say that a majority of people, and particularly vegans and animal rights activists, have not had a real relationship with a livestock animal, and have not eaten food that they have raised themselves. Animals. So anyway, obviously I have this relationship. I raise animals, but I've been raising animals for a long time. I started raising 4-H lambs when I was in not even middle school. 4th grade is when I raised my first lamb. So I think I understand this relationship with animals pretty well, because I've raised over hundreds of animals, I think. I think? That's bullshit. How many pigs have I slaughtered? Sold. I've only slaughtered 3 myself, but gosh, it's not been hundreds, but there's been quite a few animals, man. It's getting near 50, I'd say. It's probably above 50. It's not quite 75. I'd say it's under 75 animals that I've had a real relationship with, in the terms of that I see them more than once a week. Does that make sense? Pretty much all of those animals I've seen more than probably 3 times a week. So, you know what I mean? So I have this relationship with these animals. I raise them. I know part of what I'm talking about. I at least have some experience, I'd like to think. And I think that there are some significant kind of lessons that I've brought out of this. And particularly one would be the, I guess with the thing that I got from raising 4-H lambs was the ability to work with animals, to kind of understand how they work and realize, oh, they don't really want to do what you want to do, they don't want to do what you want them to do. So you have to learn how to manipulate them into doing what you want to do. And there are a lot of different tactics for that. There's like food, there's brute force, there's what else? I don't know. There's other things, the more details, but those are kind of you either make them do it or you convince them to do it. And convincing tends to be food, and then brute force tends to be a halter, right? So anyway, raising these animals, learning how to treat a 4-H animal and train them for the show, the Benton County 4-H show, the auction or whatever, and all the contests before then, it's quite interesting. And I don't really like the 4-H system personally. I don't think that the encouraged diet is healthy for sheep like that, or any of those animals, pigs and cattle and sheep. I don't think should be receiving as much grain as the 4-H program would make them. That's they're looking for a certain look in those animals, the 4-H judges, and it's hard to get that look if your animal is only raised on grass. It just is. They fill out better on grain, get fatter right, and then if you're able to train them in the right way, you can tone those muscles, and they will look nothing like a grass-fed animal. And personally, like if you looked at a grass-fed lamb versus one of these prime show sheeps, you would definitely think that the prime show sheep was way prettier, because you can't see as much bones or whatever, It's the way it is. So that's an interesting part of it, and part of that is I guess the most profound part is learning that relationship. So the first animal I ever raised was a 4-H lamb. His name was Yumsy, and he was the only lamb that we had that year, so he didn't bond with any other animals but me and the dog. So Yumsy used to follow me and Jake around. Those were his only buddies, and he was practically like a pet. And by the time it came around to selling him at the 4-H auction, I got really sad. I cried, and it was a real bummer. But I learned a lesson that year, and that was, first of all, you get 2 sheep, so they have friends and they don't become so attached to you. Because it's almost a feeling of betrayal. I guess that's what I felt. It's like, this sheep loved me, and I left him in this place to die. I sold him, and I felt really bad. But then from then on out, I guess I learned the difference between treating an animal as a pet and as livestock. And I think that that's really the important lesson that I drew out of that year. And since then, I haven't felt the same way about an animal dying. So then, like, as the time went on, it slowly, like, the first year I bawled, and the second year I was like, oh man, that sucks. And then by the third year, it's like, all right, it's this sheep season. I know what I'm doing now. I'm a farmer, cold blooded. You know what I mean? Um, and I guess so. That's where I got that knowledge of the relationship with the death of the animal. And I think that I don't know. It's. We'll get into the philosophy side later. I just want to kind of give you what I've learned from raising animals. Another thing is raising these 4-H lambs is, I had to make them do things that they didn't want to do, and some of the ways that we use, like some of the methods we used, like particularly halter breaking an animal. I think that's a really sucky experience for them just by watching them, right? It's how would you feel if you got this thing tied around your face and you didn't have fingers that you could untie knots with, right? So you were stuck with this thing on your face, and this guy tied you to this pole, and now you can't get this thing off, and you're stuck. And this is the way we train them, because what you try to do is you try to get this animal used to having a halter on. So the first thing you do is you put the halter on them, and you kind of tie it up around, so they just wear it and they walk around and they get used to it. And then you tie it to a post, or maybe you don't even let them walk around a little bit. You just tie it straight to the post. I don't remember. Anyway, tied to the post, the animal learns that if it pulls on it, it can't get away. There's no use in pulling on the halter. It's there to stay. No matter what, you're not going anywhere. Because you're going to use this halter to lead them around. So by tying it to the post, it doesn't give any give like you would. Like if you sat there and just played tug of war with the thing, it would have a challenge that it could possibly win, because it might be able to wrestle the halter out of your hands, and it might be able to pull you around a little bit, but it cannot pull around a post. So anyway, the idea, I guess, is really you traumatize this animal over and over again until it gets used to it, right? You just keep giving it an uncomfortable situation until the uncomfortable becomes comfortable. And sometimes that involves pulling them around and being harsh, I guess is the word. This might be, I don't know, you want to call it abuse? I'll listen to your argument. I don't really like the methods of halter training animals. I think that if you're going to halter or train an animal, you really should do it young, when it's impressionable and weak. So it can't really hurt itself as hard, because the most common way I see animals injure themselves halter bring is they start waving around, they hit sides of pens and stuff, or they pull so tight that they constrict in their nostrils and stuff, and they have a hard time breathing. They can hurt their nose, or they can get bloody noses, and I'm sure it's not fun. And I guess what I learned from that is it's, I don't know, what do I pull out of that is the relationship with animals is not consensual. It is against their will sometimes, and yeah, I mean that's a fact I think you have to face if you're going to raise and eat meat. So and then so yeah, that's kind of some of the things I've learned, and that's particularly from 4-H. I also learned the business end of it and stuff, and that's what really got me into raising animals. But as I started raising yaks and I started raising the pigs, I became much more interested in the side of it, because this is right when I started dating that girl, really. And I don't know if it was because, but I think I had some of these tendencies just because I thought about agriculture as something I wanted to do as a career, and I was familiar with some local organic farmers, and where did I get these ideas of how an animal was supposed to be raised? I don't know exactly. Like the grass-fed organic thing. I think it's just because I was raised by my parents. That's just the way they were. They were into that kind of food too. They wanted to know where their food came from, and they wanted grass-fed beef. So maybe I was just lucky. I was just given that. I always kind of knew that the way I was feeding these animals. Well, when I became conscious of it, the 4-H animals with grain, I just didn't like it. Anyway, trying to make this quick. I've recorded like 3 takes that were like 40 minutes long. I'm like, Jesus, what did I talk about? Most of it was just tangents like that. So anyway, raising yaks, I think the I've had and pigs especially, I guess I've had more of a relationship with the death part of it and the birth. I mean, all in general. Like a 4-H lamb, you buy it when it's 3 months. 3 months old. A steer is it's maybe 6. I don't know. It's very different when you raise an animal from birth to death. Like I just finally did this with the yak I butchered last week. I didn't do it. I did it, but those people did it. The butcher I hired, he did it. It was the first yak calf that I raised here on the farm. It was the first one born here and slaughtered. So that was a really cool deal. But this experience has given me, like, I understand these animals pretty intimately, raising them through the almost 4 years now. Getting to watch pigs grow up. I've probably watched 50 pigs grow up. Maybe not. About that, probably. That's probably about right, man. I've watched only 2 yaks grow up for all the way. I watched a few, but it's an interesting experience that many people don't have, and I'm sure that if you were introduced to this experience like I was, raising your first animal, you would have a relationship with it, because some of these livestock animals, and particularly if you work with them, they're so friendly. I mean, that's what they are. They're not wild. They're bred to be a little bit nicer. That's domestication. That's kind of the definition of it. It is a different thing. And I guess if you were introduced to that, what I was saying is maybe you would have the same relationship that I had with my first lamb, where you would care about this animal a lot and you wouldn't want to kill it. Maybe that's true. Maybe that is true. I'm not sure about that. But if you have this understanding of what this animal is, I think that's really what becomes important. But yeah, I guess I'm walking ahead of myself a little bit. A couple other lessons that I've learned is that it is. Well, I guess that's really what the first 4-H lamb of death taught me is these animals have a purpose. They're not pets. They're livestock. They're meant for meat. You're going to kill them, and having that realization before you even start raising them, that helps you get over that that part of it. But just understanding the process of what it is, and I'm almost leading myself into the philosophy angle that I don't want to hit yet, because I want to tell you a little bit more about slaughtering and raising animals, because oh man, if you've never seen a giant animal die, like a yak or an elk or a deer, even not that big of an animal, but these big animals, when they die, it's a giant meat machine that's energy force just stopped, right? Like it's a crazy thing to watch. It's like you watch it solely, right? But you watch its life leave. It is the craziest experience, not the craziest, but one of the craziest things that I've ever seen was watching my first yak die and watch it just hit the ground after that gunshot. It's quite amazing. It's not the same as a pig's, because pigs aren't as majestic, right? Like an elk or a yak. But that relationship between watching it, see it die, it really is not negative. Once you get to a certain point, like I said, right, at first it's like, oh man, I betrayed this animal, I'm killing it. You feel bad, but you're applying your human emotions there that, it isn't realistic to the predator-prey relationship. Because you're not treating it as that at that point, right? I think it's fine to feel bad about animals. Like it, I don't know. Like, I don't want to. I'm trying not to come off cold blooded, right? Because I do care about these animals, and that's why I treat them a certain way. Um, I don't know what else to say there, but I don't know. Like, maybe there isn't anything else I have to say about the relationships I've the stuff I've learned from raising animals. But I just wanted, like, I guess I just want to portray the that there is this special relationship, and it's hard for me to explain. I realize as I'm going along this, but there is that special thing that you just can't get unless you've done it. Unless you've done it, man. I guess that's all to say, man. So let me talk about the differences between kind of my thought and what I think animal rights activists think, because I think it really comes, part of it comes down to I mean, well, it is ethics, right? But it really comes down to whether you believe huh. I guess there are a few ways you can go at this. So personally, there's the kind of like two ways I would split up ethics. There's the consequentialist arguments and the deontologist. Consequentialist, as a word, it means that that what matters are the consequences of the action. And then the deontological view is that there is a right and wrong principles, and the action is what matters. It's not the consequences; it's the action. So, if lying's bad, the consequentialist would say lying is bad because you'll tend to dig yourself into a big hole, and you'll be punished if anybody finds out that you lied, and those are bad consequences, right? While the deontologist would say lying is bad because it's bad to lie, or bad to be dishonest, whatever. That's really it. And to me, I think it comes down to this: is you can look at this world and say it just doesn't make sense to say things are just bad because they're bad. Sorry, if you want to argue with me, do it. Well, hop in my feedback group. Let's talk about ethics, man. But it doesn't make sense. Things are bad because of their consequences. That, at least to me. So killing an animal isn't bad to me, because I'm getting meat out of it. If you're just killing something to just kill something, just to remove a life, I'd say that's bad. But if you're removing a life to add to another, I guess, or to sustain another, it's a different story. And I think that there are plenty of consequentialist vegans. Don't get me wrong. But I think most of the time, this argument of we need to treat it's bad to kill sentient things. And because animals are sentient beings, don't kill animals. It's bad to kill animals, right? That's the logic. And to me, that just doesn't make sense, because I don't think that it's fully thought through. I think if you think through and you ask yourself, well, why is something bad? And you keep going down to it, you really don't have an answer unless you really base it off of, this is my experience, and these are this is all I know, and this is how these variables will affect me, and that's the consequences. This is what will happen to me. And it's not that simple, I guess. Like, even my belief, that's not really what I believe. It's very complicated. It's because, I mean, we could go back and forth. I guess I don't really want to spell this out in all the different ways, because we could go on forever and look at it a whole bunch of different ways, because it's really a complicated issue. But my point is exactly that. Is it's not black and white. It's not killing animals is bad because you don't have to. It's unnecessary, or it's just cruel. It's not like that. And if you look at the world and you just take away your human emotions, the philosophy, and the way you look at things from that emotional point of view, if you can stop that, you can look at the world objectively, like the biologists do. You look at it, this is the way the world works. There's predators, there are prey, and that relationship is integral to nature, right? It's part of the balance of population. You need stuff that will kill stuff. You need stuff to die. Life, I don't know. Maybe we're just going too far into the metaphysics, but it does not make sense to me to be like, let's stop eating animals, for a lot of reasons. There's part of it is like, it's natural. This is what we've evolved to do. And natural, peel nature fallacy, whatever, dude. It's not that simple, right? It's not just, oh, you're appealing to nature or it's natural. It's you you are a biological being on this planet, which means you are governed by the biological laws. Part of natural selection and the history of the human species has been meat and the development of our brain using animal products and fire and all the technology that we've come up with. If we didn't start eating meat, I think most scientists, most evolutionary biologists are pretty willing to say that the uh, growth of the human brain would not have happened as fast as it did if it were not for eating meat. But not only is it that, like, that you're naturally designed, so it's not only is it just what your ancestors have been doing, it's the way you're designed. It's the way that your digestive system is made to work. It's made to break down proteins and fats. And if you look at the research that has come out about this, people living high protein, high fat diets or eating that, they do a lot better than high fiber, high carb, or even high protein, high carb. Um, Meat eating is absolutely more efficient. It is naturally what you're designed to do. And yeah, and we can bring into these ethical arguments about the way they should be treated, but I don't think that you can come up with a real practical solution for ending the the raising of meat. And if there really does come a point where factory made meat and the lab meat is as healthy, has the same nutritional what do you call that, profile as naturally raised meat, then hey, I'm down, man. I'll sell off the yaks. No, I'm not really. I just like this idea because I'm a weird hippie. Like the appeal to nature fallacy gets me every time, man. That's just, it's not really true, right? I like technology. I'm trying to say I'm subject, guys. Sorry, but huh? Does that fully explain the differences between me and a vegan? I don't know. I guess I care about the sentient life thing, and I think that it's important to treat animals with respect. I think that it's just just having other life forces on this planet is really important. I think that, as a species, this is our Garden of Eden, and it's not perfect, so it doesn't really seem like that, right? But really, we've got everything we need on this planet potentially, and I think that it's really smart to think about, how is this system set up, and can we not fuck it up, because it's been going on for a while. It just kind of seems to me maybe we should at least say, let's look at it. And I really am trying to look at these ideas from a vegan and animal rights perspective. But I don't get the extremism of veganism, I guess. It doesn't make sense to me on a health basis, just on diet. It's just not as efficient as eating animal byproducts or products. Soup stock and steak, dude. Can't beat it. You could probably live off that shit. And you cannot live off just vegetables. And be comfortable, I should say. You can, but you're going to be a lot more comfortable on that diet. And then, I don't know. I think that it's just a more close to nature if you are living that predator-prey relationship where, yeah, if you don't want to be the prey, you got to be the predator, right? That's the way it is. It's a cold, harsh world out there, and this is what I mean by this disconnection from food, and it's really stems from the disconnection from nature, where, man, you don't know what it's like to have to when you don't have the supermarket there with your soy products. Like, where do you get your protein? You get it out from the deer in the woods, man. That's the only way. That's the way that it naturally is. And I get it. We are industrializing, and we are getting to a point where we can have a diet that isn't based on meat and still get the full nutritional, what is that word that I want? Portfolio? It's not it. I don't know. You know what I mean, though? To have a healthy diet, maybe it's not impossible to do without meat, but it certainly is way easier, and it's definitely more natural. And what if these systems fail? Because I really think that this is part of another reason too I don't like this is the only reason that this is possible is because of these systems. That to have a vegan diet is because of these, because of monoculture, raising soybean crops, and all these, these different things that wouldn't be possible without these systems. And maybe it wouldn't have been possible for me to get yaks out here without that kind of system, right? What I'm saying is a consumerist, capitalist, civilized, detached from an agrarian lifestyle, right? This is what I'm pointing at. What was I saying? You see what I mean? Like that's, huh? I don't know. Am I making any sense? I think I'm making sense, but I just lost my train of thought. Uh, oh yeah, I'm saying it's impossible. Right. Without these systems that we've created, this economy, this globalized economy where we're able to buy soybeans from the Chinese or whoever, I don't know what it is. I'm just thinking of like who eats soy. Asians is the biggest country in Asia, China. So you get what I mean. You get what I mean, I think. Yeah. Like okay, no, maybe you don't. I didn't finish explaining that. I'm sorry. I like what happens when these systems fail? What happens when it collapses? What happens when the new dark age happens? Your diet and your lifestyle isn't sustainable on its own. While mine theoretically can be, right? I don't need capitalism. All I need is water. All I need is rain to feed these animals, really. Pigs is a little bit different. They need a more complex diet than yak. So I'm not fully sustainable there, but otherwise, right? With these yaks, I'm self-reliant. So it's harder to be self-reliant if you're going to do that. And I know I'm not so much about self-reliance anymore, but it is. I think that just based on the utilitarian arguments, it makes more sense to be a meat eater. It just does. It's more efficient, and it's just the way the natural world came about. I don't know, guys. I've said all I can say. That's it. I'm gonna leave it here. I was gonna talk a little bit about hunting versus farming, but I don't want to. I'll save that for another time. So thank you for listening. If you'd like to help out my cause here, buy some meat from me. I just slaughtered a yak last week. If you're local in Oregon, come get some burger, man. Before it runs out again. I'm gonna have to get some more yaks, dude. I don't know if I'll have a whole lot of meat for the rest of the year. But got meat now, so you can come and buy some meat if you want to. Support your local farmer and cultivate this relationship with your food, man. I really think that's important. If you're not local, go find that local grass-fed beef guy. If there's another yak farmer, usually yak farmers are pretty much primarily grass-fed. Some of them raise grain because they're hobby farmers who hey, I like to talk shit sometimes. I gotta watch myself. I don't need to go after the larger yak farming community. I'll get disowned or get discluded. That would suck. Those people are cool to me. It's my only hookup for yak cheese. There's one lady in the United States that sells yak cheese, and I need my yak community to have access to her. Maybe not. Anyway, yeah, guys, just get involved with your food, man. I think that's really important, and yeah, I couldn't stress that enough. And if you don't think it's important, then fine, don't do it, and then have a shitty diet. I don't care. No. If you'd like to help out the show in any other way, you can support us on patreon.com/justyakin. That's JUSTYAKKIN. The link is in the show notes. I'd really love it if you guys joined my Yakkin with Nick feedback group. If it's accurate, I have about 30 well, this is accurate. 30 people in my group, and I get 70 downloads per average on an episode. That means there are 40 of you, probably more, because some of you maybe aren't even on Facebook. that aren't in my feedback group that need to be in my feedback group. You don't need to be in there. But it's really cool if you do. Anyway, guys, I need to stop talking. I just feel like I'm blubbering. So thank you again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this. So what are your thoughts? Are you a vegan? Why do you listen to this show? Why do you... No, I was going to say something mean. Stop myself there. See, I'm getting better. Shit. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what do you guys think about this? What is your relationship with meat, and would you like to have a closer relationship with your meat? And if you're local, maybe I can help you, or even if not, let's have a discussion, guys. I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think about eating meat and vegans and all that jazz? Throw it in the comments. Send me an email, yakkinwithnick@gmail.com, or drop it in the Yakkin with Nick feedback group. That link is in the show notes as well. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.